So before we look at the lecture itself, let's do some stock taking of where we currently are in terms of our course outline and how many assessments we still have left. Just a warning or word of caution, as you are attending your lectures, please do not annotate anything on the screen because your markings will be written on the screen and distracting everyone. So we are currently in week number 9. So today is the 20th of April. So we are currently in week number 9, which is this week, I believe. So that line that I've just shown is what we are supposed to be currently doing. So if you take note, we are supposed to be doing Excel test number 2, but we've only just written test number 1. And like I said before you left, all the sessions for your tests have been pre-configured on Moodle already. So if we quickly go to Moodle, just to update ourselves with the dates for the upcoming test, we should have the sessions set up for test 2 and test 3. And finally, your final assignment in PowerPoint. So test 2 for Excel will be going live on Saturday, 1st of May. So if we look at the current date, today is the 20th. So that means you have roughly 10 days to prepare for the Excel test, meaning all the lecture notes within the Excel folder are what you should focus on. So if we look at your Excel folder on Zoom, where we have lecture slides, you have a total of about 8 lectures. Fortunately, these lecture slides are shorter than the ones that you had for Word. Word had roughly lecture notes, even going up to 100 slides. For these ones, I don't think there's anything above 50 or 60 slides. So these ones are shorter. So Excel, make sure you go through all these lecture slides and the format will be identical to the one that you wrote for Word, multiple choice and short word answers only. So in the same vein, you should also have your test date for PowerPoint, which is your last test setup. So if we look at the date for PowerPoint, this is 15th of May, 2020. It will go live at 8 and then close the following day. So for this one, you have a bit more time, roughly speaking, 4 weeks from now, your test in Excel will be, in PowerPoint rather, will go live. And then if you look at the slides that you have to read for PowerPoint, you only have these 4 to go through. So it would be a good idea to start going through all the step-by-step exercises, just like I'll be going through the Word lecture notes. So are there any questions from the class? And if you've got a question, just simply raise up your hand using the button in Zoom to raise up your hand so that you can ask your questions. Okay, no one is raising up their hand, so I'm assuming no questions. So we can quickly go into today's lecture, which is discussing paragraph formatting. So for this lecture, our main objectives are basically looking at all the various ways in which you are going to be formatting your paragraphs. Specifically, we are going to look at formatting paragraphs using indentation. We're going to look at line spacing between text and between paragraphs. We're also going to discuss creating and formatting bullet point lists, as well as formatting and creating numbered lists, as well as multi-leveled lists. So our focus or the software orientation would typically be around the home tab. Specifically, we are going to look at almost all the commands that you find within the paragraph group. So all the commands in the ribbon that are found in the home tab, specifically the paragraph group, are what we are going to focus on. So we are mainly going to look at all the commands that you can use for alignment. So we shall see that we have horizontal alignment. We can also set our vertical alignment. We can also set our indentations from left to right and the second indentations using your ruler markings and ruler command, as well as spacing. Now, in this slide that you're currently looking at, you have a picture showing you what happens when you click the dialog launch box for the paragraph grouping. So this is where you see additional commands that aren't placed in your ribbon. So we shall quickly go through the exercises that will allow us to use these commands. So when you're formatting your document, specifically formatting your paragraphs, what you are essentially doing is ensuring that you create professional looking documents so that whatever it is that you are trying to convey doesn't get distorted, because you would want the reader to focus on the content rather than focus on the appearance of your document. And you always want this with any presentation that you give. For example, even when you are giving your face-to-face presentation, you do not want people distracted by the way you are dressing. Rather, you would want people to focus on what it is that you are trying to deliver and the actual content. So word paragraphing formatting features lets you determine the paragraph alignment, the indentation, the space between the paragraphs itself, as well as the spacing in between the text. So we are going to look at all of these things. So we are going to start with first looking at how to set indentations. So going through our notions or the concepts that we learned throughout high school, when you are creating formal documents or even writing your creative writing stories, we learned that you would typically indent your first paragraph to show that this is a new paragraph. Then once you are done with that first portion of the paragraph, a new paragraph again would start with an indent. So we have features within Word that allow us to do all of these things. So we can indent our paragraphs using the first line indent that will leave a blank space between the left margin and the first line of the paragraph. And then we also have a hanging indent, which begins the first full line of text in the paragraph at the left margin. All the remaining lines in the paragraph are then indented from the margin. So we shall see how all of these are used for indentation. So we also have negative indentions, which allow us to extend our paragraph or text outside our margins. So if you look at your screen currently, here at the bottom, we have a diagram of what our indent options are and the associated marker that you are going to use in your ruler. So if you look towards here at the bottom, we have the indent option that says negative indent. Now this one allows you to extend your paragraph text outside the margins. Now when we say outside the margins, if you look at this diagram here, we have a demarcation line that shows a ruler with white and some gray area here. So wherever this mark ends, this shows the beginning or end of our document paragraph area where you can actually enter text. So all the information that is set this side to my right will be marked within our document, meaning it's within the normal parameters. But let's say you have more information and you want to write, you can actually move your indent markers to your left in the gray area so that you are given more space to work with within your document. So those are your indent options and the associated marker that you find on your ruler. So if we look at the first indent option, this one is found at the top of your ruler. And then we have the hanging indent that is put at the bottom. We have a hand raised by Kilan. Yes, you can unmute your mic. Njase. Is it Kilan or Kilen? You can ask your question. Your hand is up. If that was a mistake, just let us know if it was a mistake. Okay, I guess that was a mistake. We move on. Then we have your left indent as well as your right indent. Now, let us see these indents being used by looking at this step-by-step exercise. And by the way, for those that have been asking, ensure that you go through all of these step-by-step exercises as a way of studying for the course. There isn't anything else besides execution of these step-by-step exercises that you need to prepare for your exam or your tests. So our first step is connect your flash drive to one of the USB ports, but where our steps actually start from is step number 4, where we've been asked to locate a file name called Books Beyond. This is the file name that we are looking for. This is the one that we need to open up for our demonstration or for this step-by-step exercise. So I'll quickly open up that file. So in this case, you have been given your student data files on Moodle. So we are looking at Word, and the one that we want is student data lecture files 4. So I want to extract the information from this zip file so that we can use it. So I expect that we should have the Beyond file name there. So I already have a folder here with Books Beyond, but I already used this one with Group A. So in order to get a fresh copy of that same document, I'll just simply right click and then extract to student data 4. And then I should see a new version for this folder being created. And I know it is going to be a new version. If I click inside my folder here, I should be able to find the same document. So this is the file that we are meant to work with. So currently it doesn't have any indentation set. As you can see, we have titles and paragraphs, but we do not have indentations for the following paragraph. So this one, we can see that it's a paragraph and another paragraph because of the space between the two. And all of these are paragraphs that we want to set in our document using Office. So now that we've opened up our file, we can now go down to our next instruction, which is we are going to click in the Views tab, and then in the Show group, we are going to click a checkbox that allows us to display our ruler so that we can see our indent markers provided. So step number 5, we go back to our Word document. Let me close this other one. We're going to go to the View group here at the top, and then in the View tab, we are going to look for the Show group and ensure that our ruler is ticked. So when I check that tick box, I should be able to see our ruler guides appear at the top and to our side as well. So once we've done that, we are now going to move on to our next instruction, which is select the paragraphs, which is step number 6. Select the paragraphs under acknowledgement, which is the title that we are working with. So I'm going to select all the paragraphs under acknowledgement. and then move on to step number 7. So step number 7 says on the home tab, in the paragraph group, click the dialog box launcher located in the right corner of the group. Verify that the indents and spacing tab is active. And step number 8 is in the indentation section of this tab, change the spatial selection by clicking the drop-down arrow and selecting first line. And this box will indent our paragraphs by 0.5 inches by default. So seeing that they are now selected our 4 paragraphs, 1, 2, 3, 4, we go back to our home tab. And in our home tab, we've been told to go to the paragraph group, which is here. And then within the paragraph group, we are going to click our dialog box launcher so that we can see all our paragraph options and settings. So here in this dialog box launcher, we have the different sections that we can format regarding our indents and spacing. So we have a section that will allow us to configure general information. We have another one that allows you to format indentation and spacing. So what we are looking for is the spacing section, or rather no, indentation section, and then under special, we have the following 3 options. We were asked to select first line, and by default, it will show you the equivalent of what half an inch is, which is approximately 1.27 centimeters. And when you click OK, you see that all your paragraphs that you were working on now become indented. So we should see that the fact that the first line in each paragraph moves approximately half an inch, and then the other lines in that paragraph just simply follow through. So this is how you add automatic indentations to your paragraphs. So that's one way. Then we move down to step number 9. We're going to click OK, and the first line of each paragraph is indented 0.5 inches from our left margin. And we should see that our figure below, like the one that is shown in our slide here, displays the ruler and the paragraphs with the first line indent that you've shown. So what basically they are saying is, if I select the paragraphs that have just been formatted, you see that this first indent has moved here at the top. So if I select and hold it, and if I start dragging my mouse to my right, notice that the first line also starts to move depending on how far I want to indent my text with. So let's suppose I just wanted to indent it just by 2 characters. I would simply drag it there. Or I can use the predefined command that we've used under our indentation in our dialog box launcher, which is first line. We can also set them to hanging, and if we click OK, it means our first line now will be aligned to your left margins, and all the other lines in that paragraph now become indented. So now, depending on what it is that you are trying to represent or do, you are going to use the appropriate indentation method appropriately. So all I've done is simply click undo so that I go back to what our previous commands had done. So this is how you indent your paragraphs. Do we have any questions? Any questions from the class? And as I'm going through the members, whenever you are joining in or signing up for the classes, ensure that you type in your full names, because this is what I will be using for your attendance. So for instance, I'm not sure who BF is. When you are signing in, please type in your full name. Someone has asked in the chat, Luinsha, are we revising? Nope, we are not revising. We are simply carrying on from where we left off before we moved on to Excel and PowerPoint. So we only discussed 4 lectures in Word. We discussed lecture 1, 2, 3, and then we skipped and then went to 10. And then we discussed Excel after that, and then PowerPoint. So we are going through all the lectures that we haven't yet discussed. So whenever you sign in again, please write your full names. For instance, Mwila, can you also type in your full name next time? Rita, the same. Maggie, also enter your full names as well. Jemason, Kaluba, James, David. Anyone else without full names, please ensure that you, no. Mwila, Chitalu, you are fine. There's another Mwila who hasn't typed in their full names. So just as a caution, the attendance is being taken still. So just because it's via Zoom, it doesn't mean the attendance isn't being taken. So nonetheless, we move on. So the next steps are, we are now going to see how we can indent information using a different method this time around. So we are now going to select the paragraphs under the introduction heading. And then in the horizontal ruler, we are going to press and hold our left mouse and then drag the first line indent to 0.5 so that we use our markers from the ruler for indentation. So I'll go down to the introduction section, and then under introduction, we have paragraphs that we need to select just up to there. And then this time, instead of using the command that we use in our box, dialog box launcher, we are going to use our first indent marker here on the ruler. So as you hold your mouse down and drag it, you notice that only the first line is starting to move. So let's assume we want to indent it up to there. So this is another way you can indent your paragraphs. So instead of going through, if you forget the steps of how to access that predefined one, you can also use that one where you just drag your first indent marker at the top and then indent it yourself manually. And then we're going to go to step number 13, which is select all the paragraphs under the general performance exceptions guidelines. And then in the page layout, in the paragraph group, launch the paragraph dialog box and then change it back to first line selection, and we should see the same thing happen. So we should go back to our document, and then these are the paragraphs that we are meant to select. Okay, these are bullet points. So let's select these 2 paragraphs. We're going to go back to our dialog box launcher like we did, and then under indentation, we're going to select first line and then okay, and we should see that they have been indented just like we saw previously. So nothing new. So we've just changed the way in which we indent. And then finally select both paragraphs under equal opportunity and diversity. Now this time we are going to right click and then select the paragraph option, which is basically another way of launching our paragraph dialog box. And then we are going to set it to first line as well. So under equal opportunity and diversity, these are the paragraphs we are meant to select. So once you select them, instead of using the dialog box launcher here, we are going to right click on our mouse, and then when you right click, we're going to select the paragraph option. And then when we click on paragraph, we see the same dialog box launcher pop up, which we can then use for formatting our our paragraphs with the first line indent command. And then when we click OK, we should be able to achieve the same thing. So far, we have done one task in 3 different ways. We've used our dialog box launcher. We've also right-clicked to get additional commands to get to the dialog box launcher, and we've also used our ruler markers by moving our paragraphs to actually indent them to whatever length that we want. So that's how you set indents. And then we have set hanging indents as well. So although we haven't gone through the step-by-step processes, we already know how to set our hanging indents. So again, we are going to put or select a few paragraphs. In this time, we are going to place the insertion point at the beginning of the first paragraph under the heading acknowledgement, and then select the first 2 paragraphs. Then we are going to change our special selection from first line to hanging indent. And we already saw what happens when we have hanging indent. So we select the first 2 paragraphs, get to our dialog box launcher. So under special, instead of choosing first line, we are going to choose hanging. And we should see that the first line is the one that will be aligned to your left margin here. And by say aligned into our left margin, we mean at this point where our markers are placed. So that's where our left margin is. And that's how you indent it using your hanging indents if you are asked to create this. Rather than type in space bar multiple times on your keyboard, this would be so much quicker. Although you should be able to achieve the exact same thing if you use your space bar. So we move on. Under hanging indents, so under the same heading, we are going to select the last 2 paragraphs on the horizontal ruler, press and hold the left mouse button, and then drag the first line indent markers so that it aligns with the left margin. So you need to reposition the first line marker so that it does not move when you begin dragging and dragging the hanging marker indent. Your markers on the ruler should match the figure below. So you should be able, so we are going to press and hold the left mouse button and drag the indent to 0.5. So we're going to select these 2 paragraphs, and then we are going to select our hanging indent, which is the one here at the top. So there are 2 positions, though you can't see it clearly. So let me magnify this a bit. So if we look at this portion of our screen, we actually have 2 things that we are looking at. We have this bottom square, which is your left indent. And then we have the hanging one at the top. So these are 2 parts here. They are not one thing. So you can actually drag them by specifying which one you want to drag. So the one that looks like a triangle is one thing, and then another one is also a different. So one is the hanging and another one is your left indent. So the one at the bottom, so we select our 2 paragraphs again. So the one at the bottom is your left indent, and the one at the top is your hanging. So we've been asked to start dragging. So notice that as I'm dragging this one, the first line isn't moving. And that's because with hanging indents, we want the first line to be aligned either to your left margin or whatever length you specify. So right now I'm just moving my hanging indent, meaning the first line won't move at all. So I can move it all the way to the left and to the right. Okay, so I'll put it back to its original place, which was there. But this time, if I drag it from the square one, the one that says left indent, you will see that now I'm moving the entire paragraph. So depending on what it is that you want to achieve, you can also manipulate your indentations using this method. Any questions so far? Any questions from the class? Okay, looks like we are all clear. So enough on indentation. Let's look at alignment now. So we have more step-by-step exercises that you can go through on how to set your left and right indents, and you typically go through the same steps. But seeing that I've seen one command which is very, very important. So a good place where you typically use the left and right indent methods is when you are going to be working with PowerPoint a lot. So this one allows you to move certain sections of your document to the right or indent them to the left. So in the paragraph group in the home tab, if you click the left indent command, which is represented by this diagram here, or its corresponding button, which is right, it will allow you to move your paragraph 1 inch or 1 inch to the left or 1 inch to the right on the ruler. So, and the reason why I say that you typically use this in PowerPoint is because this is what you typically use to show hierarchy, especially with the bullet points that you have. But you also use this facility within Word itself. So not just in PowerPoint, you should be able to use this one. So let's see which, we're going to select the 2 paragraphs under introduction, but before that, we are going to remove our paragraph formatting indentions to none. So we go back to the introduction. So select the first 2, and then we are going to remove indentation. So this time I'm using the right-click method to get to the dialog box launcher. So I'll put it to none, and we should see that our paragraphs go back to the way they were. So while they are still being selected, I'm going to use the indentation method commands. So we are going to increase indent, and you see that the entire paragraph starts to move. And if I move it to my left, it starts moving 1 inch at a time away from our ruler. If I put my cursor just in one line and indent it there, it still does the exact thing. Even when I put it in the middle of our paragraph, you see that it moves the entire paragraph. So if you want to format your paragraphs like that, and the good use of this one is when you are making direct quotes in your assignments or your documents. So you know that when you're making direct quotes, you would want your quotes to be indented. So you typically put them using that command, and then you put in your quotes. This is to show that this is a direct quote that you have copied from a book. So this is how you would use that one. Also, yes, there's a comment in the chat. Okay, I think someone has just typed in their name. Okay. So those are how you set your left and right indents. And then we also have an exercise on how to set negative indents. Now, in the event that, let's say you want to use the entire surface area of your document. So let me zoom out so that you see the entire document as a whole. So currently your document area that you can type is within these 2 boundaries. specified by your margins. So I can enter text from here to here and also within these bounds, because that's where our margins have been set. And I know that's where our margins have been set because if I look at my document and show my grid lines, I should be able to see the text within some grid format where I can actually enter this information. So now let's say you want to extend the line that has been highlighted. Maybe you want to write some more information here to your right. You want to continue writing some data here. So you can also set your negative indents. So I'll leave the negative indents as something for you to review so that we can start looking at alignment. So these are the steps that you take. So you are going to select it and then go to the paragraph group, and in the drop down arrow, we are going to select the left indent to move our paragraphs 0.5 inches from our margin line. So you can do this manually, or you can also use your commands in your dialog box launcher. So you should be able to see that you can protrude your text outside the grid lines. If you want to do that, you can set that using your negative indents. Okay. So I'll leave that one as an exercise for you to do. So now let's also now look at alignment. So one of the key things that you typically need to focus on whenever you are creating and working on your documents, whether it is a report, a formal letter, an assignment, or your final year project, or minutes, any kind of document besides setting your paragraph styles with the correct indentation, is alignment. The way in which you present your documents are very, very important, because this will enable you, your marker, in this case, to focus on the content rather than judging your document by how messy it looks. So alignment is something that allows you to achieve that nice professional look to your documents. So when you're looking at alignment, this refers to how your text is going to be positioned between a document's margins. So I'm just from showing you the margins of the document by also viewing the grid lines. So by default, a text in the document will be left aligned and to the top of the document. Now, as a keynote, one of the things that you typically do in your document, besides using heading styles, adding page numbers, you put in references and citations, is that you need to align your paragraphs. And the one that you're going to use will typically be the justify alignment. So before we discuss those alignment options individually, let's look at what horizontal alignment is. So a horizontal alignment simply refers to how text is going to be positioned between the left and right margins. There are four main types of horizontal alignment. These are: one, left alignment. Then we have center, we have right, or your favorite, which will be your justify. This is the one that you're going to be using 97%, if not 99% of the time. So seeing that we have horizontal alignment, this means that we also have something called vertical alignment. So if horizontal alignment refers to how text is going to be positioned from left, between the left and right margins, it means vertical alignment is the opposite. So this one refers to how text is going to be positioned between the top part of your document and the bottom part. So if we were to draw this visually, let's assume this is your document. If we are looking at horizontal alignment, it means that we are looking at how your information is being aligned from left to right. That's horizontal. On the other hand, if we are looking at vertical alignment, it's talking about how text is going to be aligned from top to bottom. Now the good thing is you can also combine these two options together so that you can get more alignment options, and we shall see how these have been provided in Word in just a moment once we start going through our step-by-step exercise. So these are your commands or buttons for changing alignment and the description. So the first one is your left align, and the shortcut key here is Control and L. In this case, I'm assuming L for left. This one will align your text to the left margin, but then the right side of your paragraphs will have some what they refer to as a ragged edge. And then the second one is center. So the center alignment allows you to align your text in the center, and then it will try to guess or pick the centermost position of the document and divide whatever will be left outside equally. Then we have the right alignment that aligns to the right, and then justify that will try its best to put everything evenly between the left and right margin so that it looks nice and clean. So the favorite one will be the justify. And like I said, we also have the vertical alignment. So this one will refer to how text is positioned between the top and the bottom of the page. And we have different variations of vertical alignment. We have center vertical alignment and bottom vertical alignments, as well as top of the page vertical alignments, which we can use. So when you're changing alignment, for the most part, these options are within the home tab and the paragraph group for you to use just right there on the fly. Usually you do not need to go to your paragraph dialog box launcher to see them. Then we also have so the other ones that you don't typically see are your vertical alignments. Now these ones are typically available whenever you insert another element such as a table into your document, and we shall see these vertical alignment options. Now for changing alignment, so we've got the first exercise. We are going to use the open books beyond file, so books beyond from our previous lesson. And then we are going to select all the paragraphs under acknowledgement and then set our justification or alignment to justify. And then after that, we are going to select all the paragraphs within introduction and then do the exact same thing. So I'll be doing that, and you just watch your screen.
I see.
So I have just aligned my first section under acknowledgements. So in order to justify your text, you have to select the text in question and then choose your justify alignment option. So this is for you to align to your left, center, and your right. So we are going to select all the paragraphs under the next section as well, and then we are going to justify them as well. And then just as a reference, let's choose something different for this paragraph. So this paragraph, let's say I align to my right, and you notice that just like the definition says, it will align to your right margin, and then on your left, you see some jagged edges or bumpy edges as it were. Then if I choose this paragraph and align it to the center, what will happen is it will try to figure out an equal position of our text from the right side and the left side. And the reason why in this case our left side seems bigger is because we have this first line indent showing up. But if we look at this line, for instance, we should see that the distance before benefits and after disability are roughly the same. Do we have any questions on alignment? Any questions on alignment? So now let's look at your vertical alignment options. Like I said, if you really want to see those ones, we can add a dummy table so that we can see them. So let's add 3x3 table and then start adding some random data inside the cells. Excuse me. So now that I have my table in, here at the bottom, I now have my table tools layout and design tabs. So if I click my layout tab, I'm now able to see another group popping up that says alignment. Within this alignment, I have now additional 9 more options to work with. So here we have top left, align, top center, align, top right, and so on and so forth. So we have many options that we can pick from when we want to align our text. So if I select this one, this is align bottom left, the text is propagated to my left side rather than my right. So if this is highlighted, we see that the left side has got a straight line while the right has some edges. And if I click the opposite, we should see our opposite happen. So right now, I don't think I have enough room for the other part to show. So those are your vertical alignment options. Do we have any questions? So we have more exercises on how to align to my right, but you should be able to change alignment, whether it is to the left, right, and center, or to justify it. So let's quickly go through these ones and then conclude. So and if you want to know what alignment you are currently working with, all you have to do is select anywhere in your paragraph and look at what alignment will be highlighted here under your paragraph tab. So when I select this paragraph or anywhere in this paragraph, it is showing a justify. If I go, let's say down here under this section, I should see that it now moves over to right. And then if I select this other paragraph, it is centered. So if you want to change your layout, you can select it and then click justify. and select your text and then justify, and that will justify your text. So let's go back to our first paragraph where we were aligning by using justification. So this one is justified, and then let's change this one to right. We can also change, and this is how you typically change things. This one will be center, and then this one I'll make it left. So someone is saying they are having network issues. Yes, the lecture is being recorded and will be uploaded by the end of today, and the link will be sent via Telegram. So all those with network issues, this one is being recorded. So those are your alignments, left, right, and justify. So that's how you go about it. So finally, we can discuss paragraph shading, and then we can end here for today. Angela Mwila, we can hear what you're saying. Can you please mute your mic? Angela Mwila, yes, thank you. So now let's discuss shading, and then we can conclude today's lecture and pick up tomorrow. So we can also apply some shading to paragraphs to maybe make them more visually appealing, or if we want entire paragraphs to stand out. Now, this is different from highlighting and also selecting a color of text when you look at character formatting. These options are applied at a paragraph level rather than a character level. So in order to apply shading to a paragraph, we are going to use our shading button that looks like a bucket, and then we can select a color from the predefined colors that have been set, or we can also create our own customized color that has been given through the Customize tab. So in this step-by-step exercise, we've been asked to use the exact same document in our previous exercise. And then we are going to select the first paragraph under the heading, which is, I believe, acknowledgements. And then in the home tab, within the paragraph group, we are going to click the drop-down arrow next to the shading button to display the menu as shown below. So when you select that button, you should be able to see this drop-down menu that allows you to pick some predefined theme colors, or the ones that have been listed under standardized, or you can pick more colors when you want to define your own colors. And then after that, we are going to locate a color called Orange Accent 6, lighter 40% as shown below. And this will allow us to shade our paragraph. So if we go back to our document, let's go through those steps. So we were meant to select our first paragraph, and then in the home tab, which is this home, let me pin this. And then within the paragraph grouping, we're going to find the shading button, which is this bucket. And this one allows you to manipulate your shading color. So we have the same theme colors that have been predefined. We have standard colors, or we can add some more colors through using this custom panel, where you increase these values left and right. And as you move this, you see that even these numbers, or you can just simply drag it anywhere on the mouse and you see these values change. But in our example, we've been asked to find Orange Accent, I think lighter 40%. So as you hover over these colors, notice that there's a name that pops up. In this case, we had Orange Accent 6, Orange accent 6 lighter 80%. Then this is going to be lighter 60%. And as you move, you see that the shading of the paragraph also changes. And the one that we are looking for is 40%. And notice where it is encompassing our paragraph. It is starting all the way here to my left and all the way here down to the bottom. Now, if I use my highlighter, and let's say we pick yellow. If I try to highlight this line here, notice that even though I'm dragging it, I can't highlight past it, the corner, meaning the only section will be highlighting text or characters. And we know characters are anything which is alphanumeric, numerals, or even commas, full stops, and so on. So you can apply highlighting to text, not at paragraph level. Because even though I'm highlighting it here, I can't highlight this section. Let me change the color. I'm trying to highlight this part in blue, rather in yellow, but I can't go past this because this highlight only applies at a character level, not paragraph level. So if I wanted to highlight the entire paragraph, I would use shading, not highlighting. So I asked this question to group A. I am hoping if they are attentive, they are going to watch this video and then they will see the difference between the two. So do we have any questions from our group or students? I've stopped sharing the screen, so now I can take questions before we close for today.
Which one is shading and which one is highlighting?
Sorry?
Which one is shading and which one is highlighting?
Now I'm sure when you watch the recording, sir, you'll be able to distinguish the two. Can anyone give him a quick answer between the orange and the yellow? Which one was highlighting and which one was shading?
And the orange one is shading and the yellow one is
The one that was
because
shading.
Now you have to raise up your hand. Yes, Chomba. Caleb.
the one in orange was shading. The one in yellow is highlighting because shading is done also at paragraph level, but highlighting can only be done at character level.
Exactly. Thank you. Any other questions? There's a question in the chat. We are still finishing off this lecture, madam. So we are going to continue with lecture 4. Any other questions? Luensha?
I just selected the whole paragraph and highlighted it. How is that possible? I thought you said it can be highlighted.
No, the parameters of the paragraph is different. If you can share your screen, we shall see where exactly your entire paragraph is. You are probably doing this. So let me share my screen. Let's speak. So probably what you are doing is this, sir, isn't it? Hello? So that's highlighting. You can highlight an entire paragraph. Now, if I look at shading, so let's choose what contrast. If I pick red, now you see the parameters of where the red is going. The red is going all the way to all 4 corners. So you can also see some residue of red. It's also indicating that on this side of my paragraph, I'm shading this paragraph. If I can go to my right, I'm also shading here. And all of this section here is also being shaded. But when you highlight, you can't go past here because there are no characters here. That's the difference. What you're doing is highlighting a paragraph. If you're shading a paragraph, this is how you do it. All right, if there are no questions, we shall end here. We shall meet tomorrow at 8 hours or approximately 8:15 so that I can settle down from moving from the MU bus and the office. So I'll post the link to join around 8:05 and then we can continue our lecture from there. So good day, and I hope you are working on your final assignment as well, which is the PowerPoint. You still have enough time, but the sooner you get it done, the better. So if there are no questions, we shall see you tomorrow. Have a good evening.